Check, check. Okay, just like that. I believe we're all good. Not sure what happened there. Microphone didn't want to correspond, but here we are, rocking and rolling. Happy Tuesday. Feels like Monday, but of course it's not. We had a day off yesterday in terms of the markets being closed. A lot of different stuff happened yesterday. Obviously, you had the inauguration of Trump going in, all this talk about Bitcoin. You have the Trump coin that launched. What else do we have? The memes of Zuckerberg, caught staring at Bezos's like fiance's chest. Oh my gosh, what a timeline we're living in. It's actually crazy the stuff that's happened the past few days. And like, we have a sitting president who has an official meme coin. Like, think about that for a second. Like, just think about that. It's crazy. And then Melania coin launches, right? And then when Melania coin launches, sure enough, it basically makes Trump coin crash, and then all the money start going into it. It's crazy. It's crazy. That's all I can really say. But just getting situated. I got a lot of different stuff open that I want to go through. Definitely want to look at Pelosi's buy today in terms of Tempest AI. I found it to be interesting. I'm just reading into it now. Like most other people, I'm just finding out about it. I'm just starting to read it. But, of course, this is a total coincidence, right? Absolutely no chance that this is not a coincidence, right? That Nancy Pelosi buys a bunch of stocks, including Tempest AI, just filed yesterday. The trades took place on the 14th, and sure enough, Tempest launches this platform called Olivia. It's an AI-enabled personal health concierge app designed to empower patients by bringing their health-related data into one central location and leveraging advanced AI to provide actionable insights. And the reason it's significant, and you'll see the stock moved up a lot today. I personally believe most of this move was a result of people knowing that Pelosi bought in. And I can show you what I mean here. We'll do that in a new tab. But if you look at the move, right, this news came out, what was this at, around 8:30 or so? Whereas if you look here, look when the stock started moving up. First thing in the morning. It's because everyone saw Pelosi traded it. And then the news came out right around here. It didn't even really affect it. So, in my opinion, it really wasn't even the news that made an impact here. It was strictly like Pelosi buying in and people seeing that as incredibly bullish. Traders rushing in the door. And look at this. It tailed off a little bit after running up this morning when the market opened. Tailed off. Started climbing back, and then all of a sudden, look what we have going on in the after hours here. It's just absolutely jumping. And why this is so significant or it's moving so much is look at its market cap. 7.5 billion. Before Pelosi bought in, it was like only between 5 and 6 billion. So all of a sudden, right, you have a lot more people looking at this smaller name, right? And this is small relative to positions that she has right now, right? Her other positions are Nvidia, you've bought some Google, bought some Amazon, right? All some big name stuff. I just want to pull up one thing here. Let's see. Quiver Quantitative is a great website. I almost butchered the name, but let's see. Pelosi. Okay. Boom. This is what I wanted to pull up. Got a bunch of tabs I got to comb through here, but look at our latest moves, right? They were all filed yesterday. You have Vistra was purchased, Tempest AI, Nvidia, Google, and Amazon. And what you can look closely and see here is that pretty much all of them were call options. So these are deep in the money calls. So just not even just stocks, right? Like leveraged positions, which are what call options are. Basically, you can have more upside potential, especially when they're deep in the money, and you have potential inside information, right? Or maybe she's just the greatest trader of all time by pure coincidence. You tell me. But it's truly remarkable that the same thing happens over and over and over again. I'm definitely not here to tell you what to do. I'm not in the business of giving financial advice, but we've just seen time and time again that she outperforms, right? If you look since 2014, her return is 778%. The market index, S&P 500, is 217%. So she's 4x'd the performance of the market as a whole. That's pretty remarkable. Very few firms can even do that, and for one individual to just do it on a consistent basis, that's why we are where we are today. And shout out to Grape Ape if you're here. He had mentioned in a post reply to me that it's basically kind of becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. And by the way, follow me on X at TatronInvest if you don't already. Always post when I'm streaming there. But and of course, this is what I was talking about with Meta. And this guy looking too, Zuckerberg looking human as well. He's like, oh, oh. This guy's looking too, and a lot of people are criticizing this lady for dressing like this inauguration. I don't even know. I'm not going to touch on that, but it's just funny. It's just funny what's going on. You have to laugh at this stuff, right? But look, it ran up first thing in the morning, and it's a feedback loop. She's guaranteed upside now by disclosing her position. It's true, especially with something of this size, right? 6 billion is relatively small compared to the rest of the market. So, with that being said, we'll have to see where it goes. We'll have to see where this stock goes over time. But definitely just want to get situated here. Got the stream tweeted out. And then we're going to get into Tempest here. Let's just comb through all my tabs real quick. So this is Tempest. And then also, just touching on Bitcoin, more and more companies continue to acquire Bitcoin and just make it part of their reserve or an asset on their balance sheet. Here's Tempest again. Tempest. Get that one out. Grok. This is crazy. Look at this. This video, right? If you want to see this, like basically this guy, whatever he's saying, there's coins being created in real time. Check this out.
Our power will stop all wars and bring a new spirit of unity to a world that has been angry, violent, and totally
America will be admired, or
America will be respected again and admired again.
Isn't that crazy? And all the coins there will be respected. So the coins are literally being created faster than the things he's saying that people are watching on TV. Like people are out there making these coins, watching it happen in real time. Like just think about how crazy that is. And meanwhile, he has his own coin. Like what a world we're living in. That's what I'm really trying to say here. Like it's truly remarkable, like what's happening right now. So I definitely want to touch on Bitcoin a little bit later. And then obviously we had this from Coinbase today. Some miscellaneous stuff. We get all the Tempest stuff in one place, all the Bitcoin in one place. Wow, Tempest all of a sudden, like literally as soon as I'm starting the stream, look at this move it's making. It's absolutely rising like crazy right now. Somebody's buying some in the after hours. There's no doubt about that, right? Although it's always worth noting when you're looking at the after hours that because there's less volume in general, the stock can move a little easier. So I kind of always try and take the pre-market, post-market with a grain of salt and really just look at, what's happening during the trading day. So let's see where this opens tomorrow, right? If you're making any kind of short-term move, that's up to you, of course, but you don't want to get overly excited about it until the market tomorrow, right? Especially if you're playing some kind of option or something to that extent. But again, know thyself, like know your own risk tolerance, because obviously, while it seems like a guarantee, so to speak, because Pelosi, consistently does well in the market in terms of like her returns, again, 778% return compared to 217% of the S&P 500, nothing's ever for sure, right? And especially with options, you're looking at a situation where people will buy them, but then not really think about like when it's expiring, thinking about the Greeks and time decay. So I personally prefer to sell options. I think that's the better way to go about things. But again, it's all about knowing yourself and knowing your risk tolerance and really like what the best path is for you in terms of like the investing world. And it's also really just all a journey, right? Like you just got to keep learning and improving over time. Like that's really a huge part of it. I know it has been for me. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. But like anyone else, I made mistakes and I really try and learn from those mistakes and evolve and just move on and improve because you have to, right? What other choice do you have? You can't go backwards. And I was very fortunate to make my silly mistakes early on in my, I would say, like quote unquote investing career because I was just using money, right? When I was like 15, 16 that I got from like snow shoveling. That was the first money I ever put into the stock market. And when I first started trading, so to speak, right? I thought I could become this master trader. And over time, I kind of realized like I'm more of a buy and hold type of guy, right? So while I'll keep up with the crypto industry and some different stuff going on in crypto markets, and obviously, a lot of regulation seems like it's finally on the way. I'm personally just a buy and hold Bitcoin guy. I don't really mess with the meme coins. Although I saw Melania coin, I'm like, should I? I saw it early, so I was like, should I try and get in really quick? Just do one quick swing trade. It's against what I usually do, but maybe I'll store like $100, right? But by the time I create a Solana wallet, got it transferred and everything, I was like, all right, now it's literally too late, right? So I didn't even really bother. I was like, okay, this is just not meant to be, right? But anyone who saw the Trump coin right away, if you were like one of the first buyers, right? You're quick on Solana, you already have everything set up, and you were able to quickly swap it before the network got clogged. You could have made great money, right? But the reality of it is, I don't know if it'll ever go that high again. Then again, some could argue the Trump name's strong, it's going to go higher. I don't know. I'm not personally touching it. I'll keep an eye on it. I find it to be interesting, but I'll just hold my Bitcoin and focus on individual stocks, right? For me, I hodl Bitcoin and I buy and hold stocks for the most part, right? Very rarely will I do these like little trades, and I am now just starting to dabble in selling puts. So actually today I did sell a put for TEM. My personal reasoning behind that, and again, don't blindly follow me, make your own individual decisions. But my reason behind selling a put on TEM is worst case scenario, it's out of the money. Worst case scenario, I get exercised. I will keep selling calls till it comes back based upon reading upon the company, very quickly today, trying to learn as much as possible. I don't really see this going anywhere, and a big part of the reason I made this move is the CEO, which I'll get into in a few minutes. But because the stock made such a large move up, implied volatility went up, so there was so much premium to be collected. So also, if IV falls off over the next couple weeks and the stock even just trades sideways, then I think it's a situation where I might close the position because if IV falls off, then the premium is likely going to fall, even if the stock hasn't necessarily moved up, right? So, and again, I'm just getting started in this, and when I'm, selling options as I've begun to, I'm, treading lightly. I'm doing it in a separate account, completely separate from my long-term investments, and just seeing if it's something that I want to do in the long run over time. But again, just trying to grow and evolve and dabble in some new stuff, which since I feel like I've, built my savings, in terms of my emergency fund to where I want it to be, my Bitcoin holding, my biggest personal holding, and those of you that know me well know, is GameStop, which maybe sounds crazy to you if you're just watching me for the first time, but I'll tell you, it's quite the story. I think it's so far from over, and I really have fun documenting it, talking about it, and I have a whole spreadsheet here. I'm trying to build out more of these spreadsheets, right? Just trying to learn about things, take a lot of notes. This app, by the way, Obsidian, is great for that, but you can see I by far have the most for GameStop right now, right? And you'll see GameStop, as a quick side note, tends to fall to the max pain price at expiry, and here we are again. Look at that. For the next several weeks ahead, max pain is between 26 and 29. If you're not familiar with what max pain is, it's basically the point at which the most pain for option buyers, because the most options are expiring worthless. And in general, more options expire worthless than in the money when you just look at the whole market across the board, very generally speaking. So that's why I personally decided, I would rather be selling options than buying options, right? But again, that's just me. You got to know thyself. Let's see what we got in the chat here. Trump coin, Melania coin. Yep. Negative Banana. Thanks for popping in. Yeah, it's crazy. Sold, never buying that garbage again. It might run up again, but I'm not waiting to find out. Also, good evening, Tetron. What up, what up? Yeah, exactly. I think it's one of those, like, we're probably feeling the same where it's like, it's fun to watch, and like maybe if you get it really quickly in the beginning, you could just get right out before the rug pull happens, right? But at this point, I'm on the sidelines. I'll just keep an eye on it for fun, but that's just me, right? And of course, there's gonna be people who are, oh, it's to the moon, it's to that, but it's crazy to me, right? Like you look at it, it already is like one of the top coins, right? And I hate how like a certain link saves. I'm trying to go to coinmarketcap.com. If you guys weren't familiar, just a quick little side note, Ski Mask Dog was literally bought by like an active U.S. senator. And that's what made me look at it, and that made it move up a lot. And it's like, is that the world we're moving into, where these politicians will buy a certain asset, whether it be crypto or stock, and they know a lot of people are going to see that and probably follow it, and it's going to make traders flood in, and then they're going to make money? Like, is that we really going to allow that? I don't know. Might be something that has to be addressed if politicians keep buying meme coins and issuing them, right? because we are in a wild, wild time right now, right? Like there's just so much happening. Like there's always so much happening, right? But technology just keeps evolving faster. New, coins are coming out literally every 2 seconds. There's very little guardrail. Like there's not a lot of guardrails in place in terms of like a lot of the stuff going on. So I'm hopeful, over the next few years, and I think this is really how Bitcoin gets legitimized as an alternative asset. Yeah, I think other cryptos, like I think Ethereum's here to stay. Learning about Solana, I think that's here to stay. Doge is like the OG meme coin, so it'll probably be here to stay. I'm not saying it'll be worth more in the long run, but point being, the industry, in my opinion, and for the most part, it has to do with Bitcoin. And again, that's because I would say like a Michael Saylor type of crypto guy. Just there's no second best, right? But although I say that, and I do own a little bit of Ethereum, right? But majority Bitcoin. But what I'm trying to say here is we need guardrails in place and just some clear regulations and just guidance. So businesses that want to be involved in cryptocurrency one way or another, whether they're transacting with it, banks want to, have it as a part of their business. You see ETFs start to be like where things are going. You just need clear guidance. So it's like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do, and this is not what you're supposed to do. And in my opinion, it should be pretty simple, right? In terms of like, okay, you should not create hawk coin and scam all of your viewers who are a lot, you know, more likely than not first time crypto people, right? And I don't even know how that girl had fans. That's like such a crazy situation, but it was funny. A thing I saw, it's like Haley Welsh, the Hawk Tuah girl, basically did a speed run of like internet fame. She just like became super popular, started going on every podcast, and then created a scam coin. And then now I don't see her anymore, right? All of a sudden she's gone. The one thing I'll give her credit for is that she didn't do OnlyFans, because I remember it was like so many people were requesting it apparently, or people were saying she could make so much money, which we live in a sick, crazy world, so she could have. So I do respect her for that. But to go make a crypto coin, it's like, like you messed it all up, right? You messed it all up. But it's crazy. Where I was going with this is, I think, yeah, look at this. Trump is the 20th coin. It's almost the market cap of Litecoin, like just like that. Like that is the world we are living in. Like if Elon created his own official coin, the same thing would happen. If even like any like celebrity, right? Let's say Taylor Swift created her own coin. I guarantee you it would be top 10. I would like put the house on it that if Taylor Swift created a coin, it would be top 10 instantly, right? Like she's so big. Like she's, in my opinion, probably the biggest celebrity in the world right now. I'm indifferent about her. I don't like, it seems like, when you get that big, I feel like you naturally become polarizing. Like some people love her, some people hate her. I've been different. Like I'm okay. Yeah, like I don't love her music, but I don't hate it, and I don't see the big deal. But I don't see the big deal on either side. Why people like overreact about it. I will say the one thing though, as a football fan, that's annoying is always seeing her. They always show her a million times a game, and it's like, all right, we get it. Like, but I also get it in terms of like why the NFL is doing that, right? I was commenting with Gil in the chat about buying and selling, sold majority before dumps, swinging that to buy GME. Nice, yeah, negative banana. That's honestly the way to go, in my opinion, in terms of swing trades. If you're doing a short-term trade of any kind, use that money then that you gain. Of course, not financial advice. Do what you want at the end of the day, but use that money to buy assets you like in the long term. I think that's honestly the best way to go about it. But of course, keep in mind when you make money, you got to pay your taxes, so you might want to keep some funds on the side, right? Or whatever the case. But again, it's all about knowing yourself. I think his administration is all about how they can profit from this. Maybe some rules, but not sure what happens in the long run. Lost faith in crypto over the year. It's about money to me now. Yeah, negative Daniel. That is absolutely like a fair point. It does seem like I would agree. Like when you see like Trump coin as the number 20 coin like overnight, it does kind of make you think like what is like really going on here, right? But for me, I feel like as like a Bitcoin person, really the strategic reserve is very, very massive, right? If that does ultimately happen. And it's seeming more and more likely that we will see it. And look at TEM. It just keeps running. It just keeps running. This is actually crazy. But the other thing I'm watching too, right, is the Bitcoin supply on exchanges. So we've seen a bit of a supply shock, right? Or I think we're heading towards a supply shock. We haven't quite seen it yet, but the reason is Bitcoin ETFs launched just a little bit over 1 year ago. Bitcoin ETF launched right around here. And what you'll notice, excuse me, moment. What you'll notice is from that point at which the ETFs were launched, yes, Bitcoin's halved within here as well, fairly recently, but since it's launched, you can see the Bitcoin, and not to mention Michael Saylor has been buying this entire time as well. But basically, the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges is diminishing. So it went from roughly 3 million down to 2.4 million in only 1 year's time. So what does another year from now look like, especially if the United States establishes a strategic reserve? And why I believe that's so significant is it has to do with game theory, where I think our other like our allies as well as our enemies, and speaking here as an American, will also begin to buy Bitcoin and establish a strategic reserve because they see the United States doing it and because of the influence that the United States has. Of course, that's not for sure, but I feel like we're already starting to see it more and more, right? It feels like every day you start to see, another company that's saying we're adopting, the Bitcoin treasury strategy. Some of them, are issuing some stock to buy Bitcoin. I think that's more aggressive. But I like the idea, right? If I was a big company, hey, let's put 10% of our cash reserves into Bitcoin, right? I don't think every company is going to do that or necessarily should, but I definitely see like where that approach comes from, right? And like when you look at Mara, for example, they've issued stock. So the first one they did was at a 2.125% rate. The next two were at 0%. And you might think, well, why is 0%? It's because basically at a certain price, the shareholder or the debt holder rather, who buys the notes, has the right to convert to stock. And the only way they convert to stock is if it's above the price, the agreed upon price at which it would be converted, right? So let's say by 2030, Mara never goes to that said stock price. The people that loan the money, really what they really haven't lost out on anything. They've lost out on opportunity costs. They could have put the money in other places. But and they didn't earn any interest, but then they get their money back if Mara never goes to that like particular price point, right? So like looking at this one here, we'll see holders of the notes may require Mara to repurchase for all cash or any portion of their notes on December 1st, 2027, or upon the occurrence of certain events that constitute a fundamental change under the indenture governing the notes at a repurchase price equal to 100% of the principal amount of the notes to be repurchased. So basically, the conversion rate for the notes is initially 38.5902 shares of Mara per $1 principal amount of notes, which is equivalent to the initial conversion price of 25.91 per share. So what that means is, once Mara's at 26, 27, 28, any price above that, if you're the debt holder, it is in your best interest to convert that debt to then have stock. And even if you immediately sell it, you've now made a profit, right? Let's say Mara never goes above that 25.91 price point this whole time until 2030. If you're the lender, you still get your money back, right? Because then they owe you the money, right? But then that's where, the counter argument is when Mara's doing this and you see MicroStrategy obviously being the most like aggressive one in doing this, right? And I'm taking some notes here. What happens if Bitcoin starts falling, right? And then they don't have the money to pay that debt. Then they maybe have to sell Bitcoin. You could see the market come down, right? Obviously, that's a risk, but I just feel like there's too much demand for Bitcoin. I just can't see it making a very, very dramatic move down. But as it's noted here, this makes this company, Critical Metals Corp, the first Nasdaq listed critical minerals company to adopt Bitcoin as a treasury asset. So it's interesting, right? And you can see, but this is what you shouldn't do. Be like, all right, I'm just buying it right away. Smooth Ridge Capital LOLLC has purchased 1,000 shares. Interesting, right? So I don't know what that person's saying, but it's like my point I was going to make with that is you shouldn't just go blindly buy a stock just because they're establishing like a Bitcoin treasury. And while I think this is interesting, I think at the end of the day for me, like I don't care that much that any stock I'm holding in particular is buying Bitcoin because I'm buying Bitcoin for myself because I want to be in Bitcoin, right? And in terms of like GameStop, the stock I follow very, very closely and talk about a lot, people floated the idea of them buying Bitcoin, but I'm like, like the thing is, I have a lot in Bitcoin. I have a lot in GameStop, but I didn't buy GameStop for Bitcoin. I bought Bitcoin for Bitcoin and GameStop for GameStop, which maybe sounds crazy. And again, I wouldn't personally be opposed if they did a small amount of the cash in a Bitcoin reserve, but also like I'm completely content without because again, I have Bitcoin for myself. And in my opinion, if you want to hold Bitcoin, it's really hard to trust exchanges after the whole FTX thing. And even Coinbase to this day is giving people a hard time about withdrawing, right? And when you look at this chart here, look at the 30-day change of Coinbase Pro. I believe that's institutions only, but still, just look how much Bitcoin is flowing off exchange, right? Like, and their balance is only 706 right now, according to this. Meanwhile, they've had 26,000 flow out. And keep in mind, Coinbase is pretty much custodying almost every single ETF, almost every single institutional account for these public corporations that are buying it, right? They're doing it through Coinbase. So what if Coinbase becomes insolvent? That would be another FTX type situation, right? So my point being, even the biggest that seem like the safest, you just don't know. You just don't know. I've seen enough crypto cycles now where every time there's a huge bankruptcy, every single time. So in my opinion, if you truly want to own your Bitcoin, truly want to own your asset, you do cold storage. That's the best way to go about it. But again, that's just what I think. Do your own research, determine your best wallet. See, Trump bought Ethereum, not Bitcoin. I was kind of shocked. And Trump coin ETF was just filed. Trump will use strategic reserve to buy Trump coin. I have a feeling this might happen, unfortunately. See, that would be crazy to me, Banana. That would be crazy to me. I did see the thing, actually. I'm glad you bring that up about the ETF. It's like, why? I don't know. I just really see the value in Bitcoin and these other coins, like, just not so much, right? But I do see the value in Ethereum in terms of being like for building and scaling. But I think people are holding Bitcoin similar to gold in that it's an alternative asset, right? And the reason I think it has a lot more upside is because it's an emerging alternative asset class. And it really all just spawns from the fact that we just print and print and print and print on an endless basis, right? In terms of the United States currency. And that's why, everything just keeps going up as of late because it's money flowing into assets, right? It's that money that's constantly being created. And also, if you think about it, if the money supply increases 10%, right? So that means inflation's roughly 10%, but then the S&P goes up 10%, you're not really making a gain, right? That's a nominal gain of 10%, but a real gain, right? Inflation adjusted is essentially 0%. So you're not really growing your wealth. And that seems to be what's starting to happen, right? And that's where we're kind of like stagnating. And I feel like the United States needs Bitcoin and the people need Bitcoin. That's really how I see it. But of course, do your own research, do your own due diligence, and there's a lot, to come and to be determined over these next several months, several years in terms of what the landscape around Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as a whole looks like. So, to me though, as long as, there is a situation where the amount of US currency is constantly increasing, that means pretty much all the currencies around the world will continue to increase in terms of their supply. And that gives Bitcoin value because nobody can just go create more Bitcoin out of thin air. And that's really what it comes back to for me every time I have some kind of doubt about Bitcoin. But Ethereum bull here, 20 soon. Anyways, it's midnight. Good night and have fun on your show. Thank you for popping in. Appreciate you staying late, Negative Daniel. I hope you sleep well. Hope you have a good day tomorrow, a good rest of your week. But man, what is next, right? Because you have the Coinbase CEO literally saying that he thinks Bitcoin will get into the millions, multiple millions price range, right? And then I always think back to this graphic that I saved here that Michael Saylor made. And by the way, this is continuing to increase, right? So the supply on exchanges continues to decrease, and the amount owned by countries, ETFs, and public companies is all continuing to rise, right? As well as private companies, Bitcoin mining companies as well. And at this point, of all these entities, roughly 14.2% of the Bitcoin that's ever going to exist is owned, right? Because right now you have, what is it, roughly 19.8 million in total in circulating supply. The max supply ever will be 21 million. And because of the halving, the rate at which it's each halving that takes place, the rate at which it's being created is slowing down, right? So as you can see here, right where my cursor is, 94.35% of all Bitcoin that will ever exist is already mined, right? So very limited supply. And if this demand continues in terms of from ETFs, countries do start acquiring it as a strategic reserve asset, then I believe it will continue to appreciate in price. And that's where we could see a supply shock situation. Because if the US does buy 1 million, right? The like rough plan, I forgot the name of the senator that's been trying to really push it through and has been really kind of like leading the charge with it. Um, if they buy 1 million Bitcoin, essentially the plan is to buy 200,000 per year over a 5-year period. So that would be 1 million Bitcoin of the 21 million. That's just under 5% of the total supply. So then all of a sudden this number jumps to 19%, right? And also think about it. There's only 2.4 billion. So if the United States is buying a lot of this Bitcoin off exchanges, supply goes down further. If other countries are buying it, supply goes down further. If companies are buying it, supply goes down further. And guess what? Nobody can create more Bitcoin. That's what it boils down to. That nobody can create more Bitcoin. So long as there is demand, the price will continue to rise, right? But nobody can ever just go create a whole supply. Of course, there could be crazy things. Satoshi comes back out of nowhere, dumps his whole supply, right? That would be crazy. Of course, there's unknowns, right? There's always unknowns, and that's the thing I've learned too, just over time being in the market. You don't ever truly know. No matter how certain you are, you just don't know for sure. There could be something that's unforeseen, and especially right now, right, where I feel like we're in a landscape where everything's evolving, right? You have companies starting to buy Bitcoin. You have Trump coming in, making a crypto task force, right, for the SEC to develop clear regulations, which I think is great and has been very much needed. But what exactly does that look like? Does that shape the way the industry is in a negative way, potentially, that's unforeseen? You just don't know, right? And especially when things are changing a lot, very dramatically, very quickly, there's just not a lot of certainties out there. So what I'm just trying to say here is always manage your risks and know yourself in terms of like when you're making an investment, right? Investing $1,000 into Bitcoin might be a lot for someone and it might not be that much at all to someone else, right? Just depending on your financial situation. So for me, as someone who is out of college only a few years, just a few years ago, a couple $100 in Bitcoin seemed like, wow, that's a lot, right? Now a couple $100 doesn't seem like that much. And by no means am I like rocketed up the tax brackets. You know what I mean? Like I'm not all of a sudden like, yeah, I'm balling out here. Like I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm just trying to say like you just have to understand where you're at as an individual, right? And make your decisions. But to circle back here, and oh my gosh, every time I say that, I feel like I'm at work. Let's circle back. Let's circle back, right? But what I want to circle back to here is Tempest AI. So Pelosi bought several stocks here. Let's get this in the full screen. So she buys this company, right? Tempest AI, which is a technology company and leading the adoption of AI to advance precision medicine and patient care. Today announced the national launch of Olivia. Olivia is an AI-embedded personal health concierge app designed to empower patients by bringing their health-related data into one central location and leveraging advanced AI to provide actionable insights. However, you do want to keep in mind that Pelosi already bought in before this, right? So surely it's just a coincidence, right? Surely it's just a coincidence that she bought in on the 14th and then this launches, right? Regardless, as I was saying when the stream started, the move this morning was not because of the news. The news came out around 8:30. The big move came first when the market opened because traders started piling in once they saw it. And also it has a relatively small market cap, right? Look at like Vista, for example, or Vistra, 63 billion, whereas Tempest has only 7.5 billion right now. So much smaller, right? And then obviously you look at Google or Nvidia, they were up a little bit today too, but that's just because the market as a whole was up. And these are trillion-dollar companies we're talking about here in terms of Amazon, Nvidia, and Google. So really it's like these smaller names that I think people are looking at. And again, call options, not only shares, call options on these positions. And I started reading about Tempest and I thought, okay, this is interesting. Let me read their numbers a little bit. So they grew about 33% year over year. They're projecting another, when I read a little further down here, another like 20% growth or so, increase 20%. 3-year extension with Merck EMD. So, they're doing these collaborations, doing these little things. They just recently made an acquisition. Again, I'm just quickly figuring it all out in real time like everyone else, but you can see their revenue has gone up. They do still turn a net loss, and it became more of a net loss year over year. But one could only speculate, right? When you see Pelosi buy in, that maybe they're heading towards profitability. It's a situation like that. As I read more into it, should be able to understand more. But what I found interesting as well was that the CEO is not just a nobody. So he's the CEO and founder. I think founder led companies, like a company that's founder led, is always a great thing. And this is a founder led company. He's also serving as CEO. So his name is Eric Lefkowski. And you may know him because he was a co founder of Groupon, global e-commerce marketplace for a period of time. Groupon was huge. At this point, it seems like nobody uses it, but I remember it was very, very big when I was younger, and like my mom would always be like, "Oh, I got this Groupon for this certain thing," right? And then after that, he did MediaOcean, a leading provider of integrated media procurement technology, and then Echo Global Logistics, Echo, a technology-enabled transportation logistics outsourcing firm, and Inner Workings, a global provider of managed print and promotional solutions. So, in reading about him and listening to a video of when the company went public and they had him on CNBC, he's like, yeah, listen, I've been around for a little bit, and I've seen how things go, and you learn along the way, right? So he's someone that's taken companies public before, and you also mentioned how, if I'm not mistaken, that let's read here. He's the co-chairs Family Foundation. His wife Liz advanced high-impact initiatives to enhance the lives of the community served. Also serves on the board of directors for Art Institute of Chicago and Northwestern Medicine. If I'm not mistaken, so definitely double check this, but I believe his wife Liz was diagnosed with breast cancer, and that's really why he started a company, because he saw, like, when she was going through treatment and trying to figure things out, that there was just such lack of data processing and the collection of data, to get the information they needed to best just not solve, I don't want to say, but like to best get the best possible care and have the best possible research on things, right? So this company, the purpose of it is very dear and near to him, it sounds like. And again, he's, worked at several of these other large firms. But then beyond that, right, when you look at Groupon, like as his original starting point, like he has other success at these other companies. But then when I was looking at TEM, right, I noticed it only went public back in June. And typically the insider trading period is 6 months out, right? So like if you hold shares going into an IPO, generally speaking, and you're an insider, you can't sell shares until you're 6 months in, right? Until the stock has been public for 6 months. It's typically called the lockup period, right? And then where I always use ChatGPT is a great tool, and I always kind of tell people who are trying to learn about stuff, explain the lockout period after a stock goes public. So lockout period for insiders after stock goes public. So, you shouldn't use ChatGPT to like strictly just, okay, this is definitely what it is. I'm doing my research. My research is ChatGPT. No, you should ask it to answer questions that you want more detailed answers to, right? And then further look into these things, right? So just quick general answer here. Lockup period usually lasts 90 to 80 days after the IPO. Specific length is set in the underwriting. So if you wanted to know for sure, right, you would see this. And then I would go to the underwriting of the IPO and read specifically, right? But generally speaking, right, say it's a 6 month period. So if it went public on June 14th, that would mean on December 14th, roughly, was when the lockup period stopped, right? And sure enough, it's almost like the market kind of knew going into it. I'm not sure what S&P was doing during this time. This could be a factor, but it's almost like the market started pricing in that the lockup period was expiring and maybe some institutions were selling out. And then also, after the lockup, we saw another move down, right? And maybe there were some insiders selling within here. So we could check that as well. But then, it's kind of stagnated since then, and it went public at, I believe, 37 was like the official price, and it was like the top of its range at the time, like for the first day it was going to start trading. So where Pelosi bought in, right, is roughly where it was when it first IPO'd, and we've seen it, touch nearly $80, and now, it's running in the aftermarket here. We'll see if that continues into tomorrow, but it's just really interesting, right? That someone of Pelosi's like magnitude in terms of like influence on the markets, right? Whether she likes it or not, the reality of it is like she influences markets because at this point there are so many accounts and like programs that just automatically like will just straight up copy her trades. And it was right after the lockup period that she buys it. It's right around IPO price. Does she know something that the public doesn't? It's possible, right? It's definitely possible. So no, but nothing's for sure, right? Nothing's for sure, but it's definitely interesting. And of course, today the personal health concierge app launches, and it's like, she only bought it a week ago. Is this really a coincidence? I have a really hard time believing that. But the thing, from first reading about this company that I find to be the most interesting and potentially the most bullish is that it's a founder-led company and that Eric Lefkowski has experience, on Wall Street and taking companies public and just managing, things as a whole in terms of like taking the company to that next chapter. And also, what they're doing does seem to have to do with, improving. Well, again, I'm still learning about them. I'm still just figuring things out. And man, I need a haircut. My hair keeps getting in my face. So overdue for it. But it seems like a situation where they're trying to better the world. Of course, every company says that. It's hard to know when they're telling the truth. But given that, if I'm not mistaken, his wife Liz has or had breast cancer. I think what he's doing is very like near and dear to his heart, and he's trying to really just evolve how healthcare is provided in terms of the data, and is basically using or leveraging AI, I should say, to better utilize healthcare data and getting individuals the best possible care. It's basically they're trying to provide the systems to hospitals and different networks of physicians, right? And I found this thread, which I thought was really interesting and explained it really well. I'll read through it here in a sec. And it's cool now. Grok has a thing where it's like you can basically grok something about something right on the spot here. So it's unusual for investing in small cap stocks, and everyone's what's so special about it. Luckily, I prepared a thread. Tempus AI is a cutting edge precision medicine company founded in 2015 by Eric Lefkowski. The inspiration for Tempus arose from Lefkowski's personal life. His wife's battle with breast cancer revealed in how limited. Let's see. Oh, totally lost my spot here. How limited the role of technology was in shaping her care. Determined to change this, Lefkowski set out to integrate advanced technology into healthcare, addressing a critical gap in the industry. At its core, TEM leverages AI to analyze vast amounts of clinical, imaging, and molecular data. Its goal is ambitious yet clear: to revolutionize healthcare by enabling personalized treatment decisions, advancing drug discovery, and facilitating earlier and more accurate disease diagnosis, which all are a huge part of helping people get the best possible care. Initially focused only on oncology, enabling doctors to deliver tailored treatments for cancer patients, this intelligence diagnostics model proved so effective that the company expanded its efforts into other critical areas such as neuropsychology and cardiology. So it started, really with just cancer treatment, it sounds like, but it's evolved into something more. And evidently there was demand for them to scale this platform if, they did move into these different things. Technology empowers thousands of physicians and life science companies, making a tangible difference in patients' lives. Again, it's hard with this stuff, right? Because if you don't truly know the people personally working at the company and you don't truly know the company, and it's hard to, it's like, are they really trying to better the world? I think so, based upon a glance here, but it's hard to know. And then there's, allegedly a booming market for AI healthcare. I'd have to double check this, but it's supposed to grow an average of 49.1% per year in terms of artificial intelligence in the healthcare market, which I believe it. I feel like artificial intelligence is kind of trickling into everything at this point. So I'm not surprised about that. And how do they make money? They operate a highly integrated and scalable business model built on three primary product lines: genomics, data, and AI applications. These segments are interconnected, creating a closed loop system where each reinforces the other. I hate how you have to keep expanding, but basically run, tests, and bill insurance are paid directly. Data, licensing and analytical tools, license de-identified multi-model records and software tools to analyze and derive insights. Therapy/trial matching. develop algorithmic diagnostics such as matching patients to clinical trials or closing care gaps. See, genomics, am I saying that right? I hope I'm not butchering. Segments at its core of its platform, delivering AI-enabled diagnosis tests, not only smarter and highly personalized. So really just trying to provide individuals with the best care, right? And if you guys want to read this whole thing at MVC Investing on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days, wrote a very detailed thing here that I'd read through, but don't want to go through and bore you guys just reading line by line, line by line. But 2025, they expect their revenue to grow a lot. So before I said 30%, I was wrong. They're expecting it to grow 75% or greater. We expect the combined Tempest and Ambry genetics business to grow at 25% from its 2024 levels, with Tempest growing closer to 30%, and generate positive adjusted EBITDA on an aggregate basis for the full year. We now expect the transaction to close on the 1st of February. So they're just finishing this acquisition of Ambry genetics, right? And then again, what is Ambry genetics? Just another example of how you can use ChatGPT to be your personal assistant. It's like a robot assistant. That's how I think about it. People all ask me work. Oh, let me ask my assistant, right? And again, I'm not going to have ChatGPT do my work, but it's a good tool, right? A lot of people I think are mistaking AI and ChatGPT to be replacing workers and certain things that are being done. But I think it's more so a tool at this point. It could scale to the point where it starts replacing people in jobs or whatever the case. But I feel like for right now, it's really just a tool that people can use. So Ambry, there is no E in there, so let's grammar correct that. What's Ambry genetics? Let's see why. Maybe we can get some information why they might have acquired them. Potential catalyst, selling pressure after lockup IPO expiration. The expiration of the lockup period following its IPO has created downward pressure on the stock. As the selling pressure begins to subside, its price action should be more favorable. Institutional ownership. Institution owns 38%. That is relatively low for a company of its size. That's definitely true. More institutions recognize the value of TEM's platform and its role in the healthcare system. This number is expected to increase, which could provide a strong catalyst for price appreciation, improving margins. Approaching an inflection point where its margins are poised to improve significantly. As its high margin data and services and AI application segment scale, as it integrates Ambry Genetics into its platform, the company could see an increased profitability. So that gives me like a little bit, as I'm reading through here and thinking about it, it gives me a little bit of a Palantir vibe, right? Not exactly the same, but maybe a healthcare variation of what Palantir does. And what Palantir went through was basically what was just described right here on how they hit a certain point where what they're doing has higher margins, and when they scale it up enough, the company becomes widely profitable, right? And usually, like when you look at Palantir, and you even can see it with GameStop, where companies that are, consistently turning a net profit that weren't profiting before on the bottom line, usually that's very bullish for the stock and brings additional capital into it, right? Again, that's generally speaking. But once the market starts to see that coming, especially for a technology company such as TEM, right? I think GameStop's evolving into a technology company in a very unique way and in a very unique story. Whereas like Palantir always was a technology company, and it just kept scaling and scaling, and everyone's like, oh, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to work. And then all of a sudden, wildly profitable, right? Could that be the same with TEM here, Tempest? I'm not for sure, right? That's definitely not a guarantee, but it seems like that's the kind of vision here, right? And maybe that's why Nancy Pelosi is buying the stock right now, and also, some other institutions have begun to acquire it. So definitely worth keeping an eye on. And then definitely, if you follow me, you know that I always look for companies where the founder is still the CEO and remains the largest individual shareholder. This is alignment between the company's leadership and shareholders is crucial for long-term success. That's a big part of what keeps me in GameStop, that I believe, the people running the company have vested interest in its success. Whereas you look at some companies, then they're only compensated in cash or a very limited amount of shares, and then they just sell their shares. So Eric Lefkowski has great, it's in his benefit to drive the company forward, right? Especially if he created the company from the ground up. And again, with the story of how, with his wife, when she got breast cancer, like really just working through it with her, and that inspired him to start this company, and he saw the need for change, right? I think the story of a company, right, and it's the way it began, is more impactful than like a lot of people will give it credit for, right? Of course, it's not that simple. Like, oh, the company's founder-led, it's all great, right? But another example of a founder-led company that I always think of is Fortinet. It was started by two brothers, and to this day, they're still the largest shareholders, right? Or large shareholders as individuals, I should say. But look at what percentage is held by insiders. 17.49% of Fortinet. That's a massive amount, especially for a company its size. Look at its size. It's 75 billion at this point. And I just love that it has really strong insider interest. So, where's the insiders? Inside roster. You can see, boom, founder right here, CEO and founder. Very, very massive amount of shares, right? Literally like almost the full 17% for himself. So, as the company continues to scale, grow, and evolve and improve, which it has for years and years on a consistent basis, and for me, I own Fortinet and Palo Alto, mostly Fortinet, right? Because I've read about it more. I feel more understanding of it. But Palo Alto, I was understanding more and more over time. And that's actually another Pelosi stock, come to think of it. That's not even really why I owned it, but seeing she owned it also really made me bullish, right? So she exercised some call options. We just saw that was filed recently. That was done back in December. So she liked the stock. She bought calls. It's appreciated. She's like, all right, I'm going to exercise them and keep hanging on to this. So she owns a whole bunch of Palo Alto shares, right? But to me, if you believe in the company and how they're operating, I feel like you can't go wrong with cybersecurity stocks. Of course, do your research, do your due diligence, make your own determination. Don't just buy it because I'm saying this, right? Never ever do that from when it's me or any YouTuber or anyone out there telling you just buy a stock. Like, always know why you're buying a stock, right? But I like the way Fortnite's structured, the way they operate, and the way they've been consistently successful for years and years and years at this point. And with all of that being said, do you really think cybersecurity is going anywhere as AI continues to evolve and quantum computing becomes a thing? Companies are never ever going to cut their cybersecurity budget, in my opinion. I just don't see that being the case. I think cybersecurity, from working for a corporation, always have the phishing test, right? Anyone that works for an office knows about that. And they always, consistently talk about, right? Some companies monthly do a training, yearly, quarterly, or it's just important. It's widely known that cybersecurity is so, so important for businesses, right? So, with that being the case, I just feel like you can't go wrong with cybersecurity stocks. Again, I would, do your research and determine why you like the company beyond the fact that it's cybersecurity. But I feel like it's a great place to start, right? And I actually did a little personal project with a friend of mine a long time ago when I was first starting YouTube. We were actually kind of doing it together, and now he went a different route. He didn't really want to do YouTube, but we're like, okay, let's do some research. And what we did was we said, okay, let's think of an industry we like that we think is going to grow and has potential, right? And we came up with the cybersecurity industry. And we're like, let's see which is the best company within this industry, right? We'll look at their financial statements, we look at their projected growth, we look at how they're operated, right? We'll look at their ownership structure. And this was back in 2018, right? Or 2019. It was pre-pandemic, I'll tell you that. And we ultimately determined, right, collectively, the two of us, that Fortinet was the best in the industry, right? And now, my opinion, I'm like, Palo Alto's really made a lot of progress over these past few years, right? But Fortinet has an amazing balance sheet, strong insider ownership, consistently profitable, consistently growing, right? Very, very consistent, right? That's why I liked it. Starting out, and I can't remember exactly, but somewhere in here I got in, right? And obviously it's worked out very well so far, and I will continue to hold the stock because, again, I believe in the industry, I believe in the people running the company. And, it's one of those things, right? From this period here, I was like, damn, this thing's just stagnating. It's not really doing much, right? For like multiple years here, it's kind of, and not even really stagnating though, right? Because it finally started running out here, breaking out. But then this was a little discouraging, seeing it drop back down to the 40s, right? Very briefly, or the 50s. But in hindsight, right, like this was an amazing buying opportunity. Of course, hindsight's always 2020. But then also you see after this earnings report we got right here in August, and then another good earnings report over here, all of a sudden the stock price pretty much doubled since August of 2024, right? So in less than a 6-month span. So even if, your investment's not working out in the short term in terms of like the price action, if the company's still succeeding and driving forwards and you still believe in the company, sometimes you just got to be a little bit patient for the market to catch up, right? And let's see if that's what happens with Tempest. I think that's, interesting. I definitely want to also, I could touch on like Nvidia, Google, Amazon, but you guys all know those names, right? Those names are widely known. But then when I look at a name like Vista or Vistra, right? Like they have gone up a lot already. And now she's just buying in for the first time. So to me, that's very, very telling, right? And then when I go to Vistra, I'm like, okay, well, what do they do, right? When I first find out about a stock, this is what I do right here is exactly what I'm going to show you right here is exactly what I do. I pull it up, I look at the market cap, I look at the PE, and then I usually start with profile, right? I'll look at the profile and I'll say, okay. And I think Yahoo Finance is great for just initial glance. Once you want to go deeper, you got to look at their investor relations. But I personally use Yahoo Finance always as like my initial look. So Vistra Corporation, together with subsidiaries, operates as an integrated retail electricity and power generation company. The company operates through 6 segments: retail, Texas, East, West, Sunset, and asset closure. It retails electricity and natural gas to residential, commercial, and industrial customers across the United States and the District of Columbia. In addition, the company is involved in the electricity generation, wholesale energy purchases and sales, commodity risk management, fuel production, and fuel logistics management activities. Serves 5 million customers, a generational capacity of 41,000 megawatts. So I feel like this has to do this buy, right, on Pelosi's part. Someone has to do with the fact that Trump's going into office and really pushing the idea of drill, what does he say? Drill, baby, drill, or something like that. And that how we're going to drill a lot of oil. And I feel like this buy has a lot to do with that, right? And it would lead one to think that they're going to perform better, right? They're going to be able to do more business, grow their business more than previously expected if Trump wasn't coming into office, right? So that's kind of what it feels like here upon a glance. That's my first thought, at least. But then what I'll do is I'll go to statistics. Okay, what is the trailing PE? What's the forward PE? Forward PE is pretty solid, I'll say, just at a glance. Of course, you got to look deeper at it, take a peek at the price to sales, although I'm much rather look at like the PE in terms of like one single metric, just like right off the bat. And then check their revenue, right? The revenue per share, just to get an idea. Their balance sheet. So, first thing that stands out to me here is that's a lot of debt, but it seems like it's long-term debt, right? Because current ratio is 1.11. Not the best, but it's still above 1, right? Which you always want to see. Because current ratio is current assets to current liabilities. So, if it's less than 1, that means they have more current liabilities than current assets. So, and then insider ownership, not too high, right? Short interest, I always take this with a grain of salt because this is so like there's so many ways to work around the reporting and just like kinks to the reporting, right? In terms of short interest, as I've gone down the rabbit hole and learned about it. So I always take this with the utmost grain of salt. And also, it updates on a delayed basis, right? This is from the 31st. It could have completely changed at this point in a lot of different ways. And then I'll go to analysis, right? That's another thing I tend to do just to see, what has their estimated EPS been in the past, and then what is it actually? Do they tend to beat? And just get an idea, the average estimate for this year versus next year. So next year, expecting a much larger EPS. Not a lot of analyst coverage, but they're expecting it to go from 17.22 billion this year to 19.81 billion, roughly 15% growth, right after 16% growth this year. But it seems like it's being widely estimated, I should say, that they're going to be much more profitable year over year. But we'll see. That's again just at a glance here. So, and I'd also be curious to see, right, when I want to look at temp. Let's look at their analysis in terms of what the growth looks like. So, smaller company, right? Recently public, so there's definitely going to be like less analyst coverage, but first 2 earnings reports so far, both have been better than estimated, right? The first one was much better than estimated, a whole $1.16 better. And when in terms of like estimating in a company like this, really the EPS can vary a lot, and it could easily drop again the next couple quarters before it gets to profitability, right? But the average estimate for next year ahead is 57 cents versus negative 57 cents versus negative $1.71. Revenue is supposed to go up though from roughly 693 to 963. So that is pretty significant growth, right? And growing at 30+% rate is really good. So it'll have to see if they can continue that. Nothing's ever given. And you see some, analyst coverage starting to take place here with this company, and I bet more now will because more people are talking about it. It's just like the Pelosi effect is crazy to me. That's what's crazy to me. How it just brings like all these people to look at certain companies and start talking about them, and it's remarkable. Let's see, what do we have? Netflix earnings. Why is it on the move? Damn, Netflix just keeps cooking. Crazy. It's actually crazy. Almost at 1,000 a share. I wonder if they're going to do a split soon. Hike subscription prices. Content has never been better thanks to sports live events. Yeah, that's the thing. With the Netflix originals, you have to realize like it means people will always need Netflix to see particular shows. So that really keeps them relevant. I used to always think I'm like they can only raise revenue so much. They can only get so many subscriptions. At a certain point, this company's going to stagnate, right? Like that's what I thought back here when I had this drop off. I was like, okay, it's finally happening. It's bound to happen at some point. But they just cranked up the original content, started doing some live sports, right? Like they did the Mike Tyson fight, although they had a lot of problems with that they had to work through. But then they did the Christmas Day football games, which were wildly successful. And I bet we're going to see more of that because from the NFL's perspective, they got the game to a worldwide audience, right? So if you're like on Netflix in some random country in Africa, right, and you're like, all right, football's on. I don't ever really watch that, but it's on Netflix. I can just press one button and watch it for a little bit. Sure. So from the NFL's perspective, it's growing the game. From Netflix perspective, they are now making themselves more and more exclusive and I would say like needed by people. So I don't think Netflix inventory is good. 5,000 shows and nothing good to watch. The ads suck too. Coffee, thank you for being here. Yeah, no, honestly, I really don't watch a lot of Netflix. I really just watch sports. I don't really watch a lot of shows and then YouTube. Big YouTube guy. I watch like a ton of YouTube, but I would agree the content's getting stale, but it seems like other people think otherwise. What happened to GameStop's IV? Too many shares available. Options aren't even worth doing now. Yeah, coffee. It's crazy with GameStop's IV. I feel like it always stays relatively high, right? And I think maybe with the latest move that it made, right? All of a sudden it makes this big move down, which we got a 10% down day here. No particular news. Critics would say, oh, it's because they're closing stores, but they've been doing that to consistently stay profitable. That's not nothing. That's not anything new, and it didn't just happen on this one day that all of a sudden a bunch of individuals and or institutions sold. It just doesn't make sense. But I wonder if that large move has to do with why GameStop's IV went up. And funny you say that. That's why I've been starting to sell puts on GameStop, right? I never bought calls on GameStop, but or I should say anytime recently, right? And I said I don't want to do that. But I was like, you know what? I do want to get into selling puts. That's something I've begun to do. And hopefully I'm never in a situation where I have to sell a call, but what I'm doing in terms of selling puts with GameStop is in a completely separate account for my shares that I hold in the long term. I keep that completely separate. So, with that being said, now is probably a good time to sell a put, right? When it has a pretty significant drop off like this, because now IV spiked a little bit and then put premiums have gone up, right? So, maybe I'll think about selling another like $25 put. Like right now, I have a $24 put for I think it's like March or April, which I did it last month and I kind of regret it. I feel like it was a little bit too far out because if you do like more consistent selling of puts, right, you can collect more premium, but like anything else, it carries more risk because it can move to that price and then you get exercised, right, in a shorter period of time. So, again, still learning as I go here. So, that's kind of where my head's at with GameStop. Like, it might not be a bad time to sell a put, right? But of course, I'm not in the business of giving a financial advice. So, you got to make your own determination. But, generally speaking, options expire worthless more often than not, right? Whether it's GameStop or any other stock. So, with that being the case, I would rather be the option seller, right? I kind of feel like I'm the house, so to speak, right? Or I'm the market maker, I guess, when I'm selling options. So that's why I kind of prefer to do that. But calls, you can make money, but it's risky, right? And that's the thing too. I feel like when you go out of the money calls, you're taking a massive amount of risk. So that's why it makes sense to sell them, right? Or be the seller, right? And ideally, as someone who's long GameStop, I don't ever want to be in a position where I have to sell calls, but if I absolutely have to in that one particular portfolio, right, where I'm just strictly selling options, I will if I have to, right? But it will pain me a little bit, I'll be honest. But again, I will never sell calls like on my position that I'm long on. Let's see. Let's catch up here. What's poppin', bro? Digging the stash. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks. I'm so overdue for a haircut, man. It's like once my hair gets really long, I just let my facial hair grow too. Because I'm like, all right, then it seems weird. Like my hair's overgrown, but then my facial hair is undergrown. So I just let it rock and roll right now. But even the put premiums aren't that great. I was looking at cash secure put for 25, and it wasn't that much premium. I made some good money selling cover calls. That's okay if they get called away, as I wanted to lower my cost average. No, it makes sense, Coffee. That's fair. That's absolutely fair. And yeah, that's crazy. I haven't really looked at the options on GameStop recently. It's probably a better website to do this, but let's take a peek. But yeah, that's definitely weird. Yeah, like that's not. It's a decent amount of premium. 70% IV. Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing why I feel the best about like selling puts on GameStop rather than other stocks because I feel like I know the most about it, and if it starts going down, right, it trickles all the way down to $20. I'm like, okay, I know how this game works, right? I know how the stock works. Like it's gonna bounce around, so be it, right? If I get stuck holding shares for some time. And that's the thing too, right? Like if I theoretically exercise, I don't have to immediately sell a call. I can wait a little bit, price appreciates, then I can sell a call theoretically, right? And I will get a better premium collected because the price had gone up. Again, just figuring out as I go here, figuring out as I go. But yeah, definitely Tempest, I think, is very interesting, right? It's very interesting first finding out about it today and seeing Pelosi bought it. But I'm not going to go, YOLO into it. I mentioned before I did sell a put on it today to take advantage of the high IV, and it's nice to see it now in the after hours here. But honestly, it's one of the most aggressive moves I've made in a long time, and I feel like for myself, right? And again, it's keep saying it's all about your own investment journey, which I really do think is the case. But I feel like for myself, I've got myself up to a point now where like I feel good about my emergency fund, the assets that I own as a whole, and the way I've been acquiring assets in terms of like buying stocks, buying Bitcoin, and just owning more and more things that I feel ready to take, a little bit more risk, right? And I've been collecting premium through selling puts on GameStop for the most part. And now I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to mess with this Tempest AI because it seems interesting. I don't think it's going anywhere, right? Given its technology, even if they theoretically, like they don't have the absolute cleanest balance sheet right now, right? They're working towards profitability, but I don't see them having any issues, especially with Eric Lefkowski, sorry, excuse me, his past experience. I don't see them having any issues raising capital if necessary, so I don't really see them going anywhere. So worst case scenario, right? I think it's a $45 put I sold or 40. I'd have to look again. I did it earlier today. Worst case scenario, I'll just keep selling calls on it if I do get exercised on this, right? And I can't help but say, like, it helps that Pelosi owns them. Okay, like, there's probably something coming that I don't quite know yet that she might have information on, right? But again, I'm not going just strictly off that, but there's a lot of premium being collected today, so I said, you know what? I got some cash on the side right now. I'm going to take a chance and grab some premium and let's see how it goes, right? But I'm going to keep close eye on it, keep reading about it. And if it does wind up being a situation, right? Let's say over the next 2 weeks, stock kind of stagnates like this way, right? But it stays in this like upper range here. IV should fall off, and I'd have no problem closing the position, making a couple $100 gain, right? Like buying it back, right? Let's say I make 50%. I don't know if I'll make that much, right? Because it's a couple months out, this put option. But again, figuring it all out. Don't just follow me. Please don't ever do that because it's all a journey, right? I'm going to make mistakes along the way, just like everyone else. So you just got to know thyself. You just got to know thyself. But definitely interesting, right? That she buys a position of this small market cap. That's really what stands out to me as well. I'm like, I don't really recall a time for ever buying a stock with a market cap of only 7.5 billion, right? And you might say, oh, only 7.5 billion, but that's small relative to the sizes of the other companies that she's buying, right? Even Vistra is like 10 times the size. It's like 70 billion that she just bought. And then you look at Nvidia, Amazon, Google. These are multi-trillion-dollar companies and only getting bigger, right? So just some food for thought there. You gotta just sometimes also you gotta sit on things and kind of think about it a little bit and ponder. You don't always like have the right answer right away, right? Or when you're deciding on something, it feels like, oh, I got to make a decision now. But sometimes it's okay to kind of just wait, hang out, and then make a decision. Then if the opportunity passes by, right, it's like baseball, as Warren Buffett says, but there's no called strikes. You just let the opportunity pass by and move on to the next one if need be. But I'll definitely be keeping a close eye on Tempest. I think it's interesting. It's an interesting story reading about it and what they're doing. Maybe we wind up picking up some shares at some point. We'll have to see about that. It is still new, but it is encouraging to see, and I'll have to look into the insider transactions more, that the lockup period for insider sales was ended right around here, right? So it seems like the market kind of priced it in. Some insider sales took place, and maybe it's kind of bottomed out at this point. But we'll see, because it's still a very young company, right? It's only roughly 9 years old when I looked it up, right? And it just went public 6 months ago. But again, this guy has some good credibility and experience. He was part of Groupon, Echo Global Logistics, uh, Inner Workings, and I think there was like one or two other names that I recognize as well. And he's on the board of directors for Art Institute of Chicago and Northwestern Medicine, right? So you could see maybe some trials, or not trials, because that's not really what the company's doing. It's a technology company, but they could basically test their technology, I would say, with like Northwestern Medicine, with his connection, right? Or that could be not necessarily a partnership, but some form of connection there, I would say. Have you watched Eric the Option Guy? He has some good guests lately, and he explains his trades. I haven't, Coffee, but I'll write it down. I'm definitely curious. Let's say Eric the Option Guy. Yeah, I'm always trying to be open to just new things and learning and just getting different perspectives I didn't have before. Like, that's what I'm really trying to work on. Not that I feel like I had like a problem with it, right? And I say work on it. Is just being like keeping an open mind, right? And always trying to see both sides. And I feel like if everyone as individuals did that, the world would be a lot better place, right? And if everyone as individuals just worried about solving their own problems, the world would probably be a better place, right? I know it's not all that simple, but Eric the Options Guy, I'm going to check that out. Let's see. Wow. Tempest has 57% insider ownership. Yeah, thank you, Coffee. I forgot to mention that one. I did see that as well. So that's where we do have to definitely like keep an eye on, what's going on with the insiders, because if all of a sudden they start selling like a lot of shares, right? 57% is actually wild, and institutional ownership could increase a lot. I could definitely see that. And when you look at it, right, although we know, right, or when you read about it, you realize like it's not as simple as like there's been situations where institutional ownership has been over 100% because of some interesting reporting practices, right? But the institutional ownership isn't that high. It's only 30%. And then insiders, if you add these together, right, you're looking at 87%. So not a lot of like individuals really owns the stock, it seems, as of now. So we'll see if that changes over time. But let's see the main holder. I bet it's our founder. It's nice to see the CFO also having a significant amount of shares. It's definitely Eric who probably owns the most amount of shares. All right, I can't quite pull it up here, but something else to look into. But yeah, definitely insider ownership is always very, very bullish, right? Like founder-led company as well is, I feel like, so important. And we'll see. It's still in its infancy, but if anything, I learned about something new. That's what I'm definitely like happiest about in terms of like seeing that Pelosi bought it. I think it's an interesting company, right? It's interesting concepts, and AI is not going anywhere, right? Like, it's kind of a hot buzzword right now, but it really is like where things are going. And if you really think about it, a coworker was saying this to me, it's like we've basically had, and he's right, like AI has been a thing for like 10, 15 years. But it's just like really at the forefront now after Chat GPT. Like, that really changed the game. And it's just like in terms of what people think AI is. Like, we've had, basic AI to do basic things, kind of built into certain programs or whatever the case. But it hasn't been like widely used and available to the public like it is now with ChatGPT or Grok, right? Or I could like create an image of robots dancing, and it'll just do it, right? Like, we haven't had that, right? Or been able to just get like these detailed answers. And also think about this: ChatGPT has evolved. Look at this, has evolved so much since it first came out. And what is it? Only like 2 years old at this point. And then the AI video stuff is also getting crazy. I'll show you guys some of the stuff I've been working on. And I posted one the other day, like on my page. Like, it's crazy the stuff you can do now with this stuff. And I'm having a lot of fun learning it. And stay tuned, I'm low-key making a longer AI GameStop video. Like, it's just like a fun little like alien themed video, which I'll probably drop near earnings. So it's gonna be a while, but it's crazy, right? Look at all this different stuff you can do. Cat just enjoying a pizza with a witch hat and drinking a brew. Kid just chilling with the shark. Some of these are wild. We got Robot Lady playing tennis. We got Unicorn hatching. This girl's just chilling underwater. Car pulling up in the rain. Cat with wings. I like that. Cat flying away. Wow, giant snake on the Eiffel Tower. Guys fighting, kung fu fighting a cat. Get this lady on a horse with a bow and arrow. And it's crazy, right? Like these women are looking more and more real on this, right? It's insane. Like you can still tell at this point, but it's like when you think about that, all this is still relatively new. And look at this baby elephant walking here. Imagine like a few years from now how real, like even like this one, right? Like this lady looks so real. Like this looks so real. It's crazy. Like, and this one too, like she looks pretty real. Like you can still kind of tell, but like we're getting to the point, right? Like in this you could tell because just like the way this video is made, right? And you see you got these little ants running around here, but you could still tell at this point. But my point is like we might get to the point within a few years, right? Where it's just hard to even know what's real and what's not, right? It already feels like we're teetering on the edge. So what happens in a few years from now, right? But it's crazy. And 71 million float, yes sir. That's correct, but it's a crazy world we live in. I feel like I say that every stream, but it's true, and it's only getting crazier, and you just got to keep grinding, and do what's best for you at the end of the day, and just keep improving little by little. That's what I'm doing, at least. I can't tell you what to do, but I think that's really the best way to go about things. Just keep moving forwards, keep driving forwards, improving on whatever you want to improve on, and involve what you want to involve into, and just push forwards, right? Because at the end of the day, you can't go backwards in time. All you can do is move forwards, right? So keep going. That's all I can say. But yeah, just like that, I think we'll leave the stream here for today. That's all I kind of had to say. Definitely want to touch on, some Bitcoin stuff. Mostly talked about Tempest here. They didn't talk too much about the other positions, but Nvidia, right? To quickly recap, Pelosi's new positions are, or positions she just purchased, I should say, Amazon, Google, Nvidia, which she already had shares of, or call options rather than maybe exercised in the past, but now acquiring Tempest AI and Vistra, brand new positions, right? And call option positions, right? And when you go on this website here, QuiverQuant, it's great. Purchase 50 call options with a strike price of $20 and an expiration date of January 2026. So these are so deep in the money. It's basically just like so she can own more without actually buying the shares, right? When you look at it. And then I bet it's the same with, oh, wait a minute. I'm in the wrong spot here. I bet it's the same with Vistra. Let's see. Purchase 50 call options with a strike price of 50 and an expiration date of the same time. Exactly 1 year out, right? And look at Vistra. It's at what, like 180 today? Yeah, you think this thing's going below 50? So it's a near lock that she'll be able to exercise them, right? But if it keeps going up and up, basically she kind of has like a leverage position, right? With deep in the money calls. Whereas like she would have got less shares, or like she would like the amount of shares she has rights to by having the call options, right, is much greater than if she just bought the shares directly. So that's just the way she goes. That's the way she goes. Not much cash. They owe what they have in the bank. Might have to issue shares soon. Yeah, coffee. That's definitely possible. Yeah, there's always two ways a company can raise capital, right? They could issue stock or they could issue debt. I could see them potentially going either way, right? And it would be interesting to look at what Groupon did. Are they even still public? Wow, they are. I bet they're like a penny stock at this point. Wow, okay, they're not. Interesting. It's crazy. I remember when Groupon was like all the rage. It's kind of steadied out. Wow, if you bought in 2023, it's actually gone up surprisingly. But it'd be interesting to look back and see when they were in their infancy, were they issuing a lot of stock, they issuing a lot of debt? Although that doesn't even necessarily mean anything, right? Just because it's what they did doesn't mean it's what Tempest will necessarily do, just because they had the same, founder, right? Or he was a co-founder. Koski. What's his name again? Keep. Oh, there's one more thing, and then we're gonna wrap it up. There's Eric Lefkowski, co-founder of Groupon, the solo founder of Tempest AI. And it seems like Tempest AI is the most meaningful of the companies he's worked for because of the personal connection. So that's definitely, worth noting, some food for thought. But it also depends too. If he winds up dumping about a lot of shares, it's like, does he really believe in this? I don't know. Then some could start to doubt that, right? So we'll have to definitely keep an eye on their cash balance, right? And as well as their cash burn. But let's see also their current ratio before I wrap up here. Current ratio 2.69, decent, right? But they don't have that much cash. 296 per share, not too much, but definitely all stuff to keep an eye on. It'll be interesting to see, their next earnings report, what EPS looks like, what updates are with their new program that they just launched, right? So, seems like this company is still, relatively in its infancy, right? It's not because it's 9 years old, but I feel like most companies, and it depends, right? Maybe not most, could be around like a decade plus before they go public. So, but sometimes it's like, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing to go public early? It's all up for interpretation. But we'll have to see as time goes on, right? And that's why you gotta keep reading and keep learning about things. But the last thing I want to touch on here, where is it? Party. I really thought this was Mario Party. I was like, why did I send myself something from Mario Party? But U.S. Fed changes their overnight repo rules on January 24th. Small value exercise will be conducted on Friday, January 24th. The overnight repo operation taking place at 10 a.m., 10:15, and overnight reverse repo operation taking place from 10:30 to 11. All counterparties in each small value exercise will be limited to $1 million proposition per eligible security type. Following the completion of each operation, the purchase operation results will be posted on the York's repo website. Repurchase agreements operation. So, let's see, in September 17, 2019, the repo market catastrophic failed, forcing the Fed to intervene, and once a deadly virus magically appeared. A lot of theories out there, right? But I'm tired of winning. Please make it stop. Oh my gosh. But yeah, no, just always trying to keep an eye on this stuff too, right? And then you're like, oh, what's overnight repo, right? Just go to your assistant here. What is overnight repo? Overnight repurchase agreement, short-term borrowing and lending mechanism in financial markets. It's widely used with financial institutions like banks, hedge funds, and other market participants to manage short-term funding needs and liquidity. And then you get details here. And then I could say, like, what are the changes I am reading about that will be taking place on January 24th, 2025? And again, don't just blindly trust ChatGPT here. You want to go ahead and look into it further, right? See, this says there are no widely reported significant changes scheduled to specify on that date. However, several important updates are occurring around this time. So you could read into these more, right? And this is also where, like, Walmart's return policy reversion has temporarily extended its return policy to accommodate holiday returns, right? And see, this is where AI still has some issues that got to be worked out, right? What does that have to do with what I just asked? But sometimes, right, it'll bring something up, and then you go down another rabbit hole. You learn some information on that, but it's just about keep going. And then also, I love this app, right? Obsidian for note taking, because I realize, we take in so much information every day. It's so hard to like keep track of it all, right? So I really like this because you can, sort, you can basically make a canvas. You could do a live link. You could do a picture. You can do a bunch of notes. And by the way, not sponsored by this company, Obsidian, at all. Maybe I should be because I love it. I always feel like I use it on the stream. I talk about it. And then you got Mara here. I got some notes on that. And of course, the one, the only, and I was trying to, learn about their board and their plan and how they're going about things. And it helped me to just kind of put it all on one page here, right? And then even the little things, right, I can take notes on, like, oh, they're acquiring a wind farm. They have really strong focus on energy sustainability as a part of what they're doing. And then, of course, the one, the only, the GameStop Ultimate Canvas, where I have the most notes, right? I have a lot going on with GameStop. And I wish I started taking notes from the very beginning, from when I started talking about the stock and following it closely, because then this would be even bigger, right? It looks pretty big, but it could be much. Oh man, what am I saying? But it could be much bigger, right? It's crazy. And the GameStop story will continue to evolve. Most likely, next stream, I'll be talking about GameStop. We'll have to see. Depends what's happening in the markets. It's kind of like a lull for GameStop right now, which is just how the way she goes sometimes, right? In terms of GameStop, we've seen it time and time again where it goes through these cycles, right? It gets crazy right here. It's kind of stagnated. All of a sudden, it's being talked up a lot. You start seeing all these random accounts saying it's setting up perfectly for the next run. Although this could just be a dip before the rip, right? All reliable. That one chart you always see, the little dip and then run up. But it goes through these stages, right? Where it's just kind of an elongated down period. So, not to be a naysayer, but we could be entering that, right? Could it be another like steady stair climb down to $20 over the next couple months? It's certainly possible, especially if the general market starts to fall, right? I saw a theory today on Twitter, although you got to take it with a grain of salt when you see things on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it these days, that, if Trump, really pushes these tariffs and it really hurts the economy in the short term, like whether it's like pending negotiation or businesses get hurt by it or whatever the case, right? Theoretically, right, then the market would fall, right? Let's say it has a pretty significant drawback, going into this year, right? Let's say it falls back to 530, right? That'd be a pretty significant drop, right? We'd be like kind of teetering on the edge of a recession, right? Arguably it would depend. But, right, what do they say? A 10% drop. So I guess if it went from 600, drops 60 points, and technically it's a recession, right? When it drops 10% by definition, right? Oh, didn't they change the definition a while ago? Whatever. Point being, if that were to happen, then the Fed is a lot more incentivized to go ahead and raise rates, or sorry, cut rates, right? And cut rates, and then that would, theoretically then boost the economy, and it would theoretically like weaken the dollar, which would be better for trade if I'm not mistaken, right? I wish I saved the tweet. It explained it a lot better. But basically, if it's a scenario where there's short-term pain for long-term gain, I think that's something we could see happen, right? So you got to realize too, also, like in terms of also Bitcoin, not just the market, right? When you look at Bitcoin, it's like there's going to be a strategic reserve. All these companies are starting to buy it. MicroStrategy keeps buying it. ETFs keep creating more inflows into Bitcoin, right? And supply, I keep talking about too, how supply on exchanges continues to decline, and it's steadily declined ever since we got the launch of the Bitcoin ETFs roughly 1 year ago. It's just steadily declined from then in terms of the total Bitcoin on supply on exchanges. But right, while everything seems so good and so obvious that it's going to keep going up, I start to be cautious, right? Cautiously optimistic, because it's almost like when things are too good to be true, they usually are, right? There's usually a reason it feels too good to be true, and it's then I almost start to be skeptical. I'm like, is there something I'm missing here? Because it feels like Bitcoin's going to go up a lot more. You even have the Coinbase CEO saying like, yeah, I think it's going to go up to the millions, but in what time frame? And we've seen time and time again with Bitcoin, right? It goes through these cycles. You could go through this down period here, right? And then it could run all the way back up and then beyond. Like you just don't know. You just don't know in the short term. So you just got to keep that in mind. You just got to keep in mind that if you focus on the long term, I feel like you could have a pretty good idea what's going to happen and know how you want to go about things. But if you're doing the short term, you just don't know. You just don't know, right? Well, it seems Bitcoin's so close, right? Like tomorrow, we could be at a new all-time high. I think technically it hit a new all-time high very briefly today, right? When it went over 109, at least what TradingView has here. But that could be it, right? That could be it for months before it goes to an all-time high. Or for the next like 5, 10 days ahead, it could go to a new all-time high every single day, right? I think it's going higher throughout this year, especially with regulation about to be put in place, and just it seems like for a long time, people in the crypto industry as a whole have been asking for just some clarification and just understanding. Okay, what are we allowed to do and what are we not allowed to do? And it seems like we're finally going to get legislation around that. We'll see what it looks like, what it shapes out to be. But I think, that's what's really needed for the next chapter, right? And for banks to be more involved with it. Because I feel like all the gray areas surrounding crypto and Bitcoin as a whole has made, some large institutions and individuals shy away. Like I talked to someone like my friend's cousin's friend, right? So just meeting someone, just having conversations, and he was telling me how he works at Merrill, and I forgot which one, Merrill Edge or Lynch, but they're both owned by Bank of America. But he was telling me how their clients aren't even allowed to own Bitcoin. I don't know if that's still the case, right? This was several months ago, but he was saying like they were losing some funds like on their platform because it was a situation where people wanted to be involved in Bitcoin, allocate some of their funds, and the rules for their platform is that they just weren't able to. So, and I feel like the reason they may have made that decision, it could be they think it's too skeptical of an asset, they're protecting their customers, but it's like if everyone else is doing it, you got to compete with the market, right? You got to offer it if every other like institution is. So we'll see. Seems like my camera's lagging. I'm kind of rambling at this point, so I think we're gonna leave it here. But thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate you being here. Talk some GameStop next time, most likely. So be sure to follow me on X to find out what my next stream is, Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days. At Tetron Invest. Sauce me a follow. I'll always tweet out when I'm streaming. Tweet out some various stuff about GameStop, other things going on in stocks, like, the world's greatest trader, aka Nancy Pelosi. And yeah, I said it yesterday. I said it's worth noting the TEM, VST are new positions. Tempest AI has a current market cap of 5.5 billion. Small relative to other stocks. Could see a move up tomorrow as traders follow Pelosi's moves. But it's funny, right? Like the articles say for Tempest AI, like when you look at it, it's like, oh, it's going up, right? Because they launched Olivia. Here's why this medical AI stock soared on 35% on Tuesday. Doesn't want to load now. Let's see. Well, it doesn't want to load. But basically what the articles are saying is like, oh yeah, they launched this new platform, Olivia, right? Like, and that's really why the stock's moving up. But look at when the stock moved up this morning. When the market first opened, right? I don't know why this is all messed up now. No, it'll take me forever to fix this, but see, look, big jump up, and that news came out about that new AI platform around 8:30. Stock wasn't even affected, right? The news came out after the big move, and that's because Pelosi came in. It's the Pelosi effect of buying the stock. That's what it comes down to. So, yeah, I thought Ted Cruz had a better portfolio than Pelosi. I'll have to check that out, Coffee. I'll have to check. I don't think so. I think he's had success as well. I know that other guy, Tuberman or whatever. And just to clarify, like, I think, both the left and the right, they buy stocks for their own gain. Like, I'm not trying to single her out because she's on the left, right? I'm not doing that in particular. I just feel like she's the most consistently successful in trading stocks, right? Like when you look on Quiver Quantitative over here. Did we exit out? Nope. Let's go back. You can see she's 778% versus 217% of the S&P 500. So I feel like she's just the most widely talked about one too, and that's why I'm kind of touching on it for the most part. But I'll check out what you say, Ted Cruz as well. But what's that other guy, Tommy Tuberman or something like that? He's also I'm sure, I think, one of the best performing like traders over time. Unusual Whales does a good job tracking it. This guy, yeah, Tommy Tuberville. See, they don't have the chart here of his total returns, but all of a sudden, see, he sold a bunch of stocks towards the end of last year. Hasn't really done anything since, which is interesting. But I don't know. Let's see. I'd have to see like what he currently has, right? And then that's where you got to get, the premium version for more details. But just at a glance, so they're all still 1%, not left and right. It's a top versus bottom struggle. You're right, Coffee. You're right, and it's like everyone's pinned against each other. Oh, it's the left's fault. Oh, it's the right's fault. But you realize it's all top versus bottom at the end of the day, right? And what I'm trying to do is just climb away from the bottom as high up the mountain as I can, right? Not to be, overly wildly successful, just to live comfortably, right? That's my ultimate goal, and build a life that I want to live type of thing, right? And it's easier said than done, but just keep pushing forwards. Richard Newton has a spreadsheet with the GME stuff. He's on YouTube. Yes, Coffee. I definitely know Richard. I got to check out his spreadsheet more, though, but definitely he has great information. He's done a great job covering it, honestly. Like, sometimes I'm just at work, or when I work from home, I'll just, like, throw it on, like, his videos and just kind of listen to it. And helps me stay in the loop with GameStop, too, because I don't really go on Super Stonk anymore, and I feel like Twitter X gets crowded with all these things and these crazy posts that I just swipe away from, or so I'm not always like in the loop, but it's also like, I mean, I'm like staying in the loop and I'm following along with it, but sometimes it takes me some time to get caught up on things because I just feel zen and holding the stock. So I really don't worry about short-term moves or anything short-term at all when it comes to GameStop, because I've held on to it for a while and I'm not going anywhere at this point. And that's why even like when we had this like move the other day, right? And I don't know what's going on with my platform here. Let's fix this. This move, huge move down. But oh, what's going on? Oh, what? Aren't you worried? No, I don't care. This is literally nothing relative to what we've seen, right, over these past several years. It's literally nothing. And this story is far from over. Whether the naysayers like it or not, I think the story's far from over. And with a strong balance sheet, they're not going bankrupt. So yeah, maybe people think, oh, they're not going to succeed. They're not going to do anything, but they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. You really can't argue with that. So, but yeah, Coffee, thanks for being here. Hope you have a good night. Everyone else, hope you have a good night. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more again at Tetron Invest on X, posting updates on there and when I'm going to be streaming. I might even try and start streaming on X. Thought about that. Not too sure how that would work. I got to look into that a little bit more. But yeah, thanks for being here. Hope you have a good night. Always stick to your plan, know yourself, and take care.